we'll keep going here. So you can see this. This is the high level summary, and what I want to do, I guess, is distribute the rest of our time together across these 4 phases of holistic decision making. Probably spend more time on the first one, which is how it ought to be. So articulate how you want things to be, and then we'll come back to noticing where you are, making decisions that take you there, and paying attention to what actually happens, and course correcting. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take you through a few examples of how we do this in holistic decision making. Am I sharing at the moment? I am, okay. So somewhere is, oh, there it is, stop share. So I think I'll start with the example of the business. Here it is here. So share that. So this brings us to the topic of what I call a holistic, well, after Alan Savory, founder of Holistic Management, something he calls it a holistic context. I tend to just call it a context, but it's a thing we put into a diagram that takes up a page. And it's quite exciting for me because it captures the DNA of something, like the essence of what needs to be true of something if it's really going to enhance quality of life for everybody involved. And I'll take us through a few layers. We'll see how we go. Maybe not all of them, but the first 2, the bit in the middle in this halo of light blue phrases or statements, are the big ticket items initially, and the rest come in to support them. And so one really important point to make is that for some things that you're going to make decisions about, a purpose statement is appropriate because they have a purpose. And a purpose is an answer to the question, why does this thing exist? What's the essential work of this thing? And purpose statements are appropriate for things that were created for a particular reason, such as a permaculture group or a business, or an organization or a conference or something like that. And so in those cases, we write a purpose statement. It's really important to focus. Where are we heading with this? Some other things don't have a purpose statement. And a purpose statement can be kind of confusing to try and force them onto these other things. And those things are like individual people, like me as a whole. I don't have a specific purpose. There's roles I play in my life, but I don't have a specific purpose for existing. I remember a Bob Dylan quote. It was something like, people think that life is about finding yourself, but life isn't about finding anything. Life is about like creating yourself. And same with purpose. People can think, oh, you know, I've got this sort of, the universe has this, I've got this destiny waiting for me, this purpose out there that my job is to find, as opposed to, no, I've got a role to play, and I've got a unique set of characteristics I can bring to what's needed in the world. And in doing so, I'll write my story out rather than thinking about my God-given purpose. In the case of this is for Very Edible Gardens, the business. It was created for a reason. And so I should say that this is like version 50 or something. We check in with this at least every 6 weeks. It's really the key to Very Edible Gardens, which on its own terms is a modestly successful business that we have. We've defined what quality of life means for all of us involved, and those things are by and large true and have become true because of this process. So let's have a quick look at this example of a purpose. So it's just answering the question, what's VEG about? Why does it exist? VEG designs, builds, and educates about urban food production, ecological embeddedness, and community resilience in a way that grows our individual and collaborative capabilities. This isn't about marketing or promoting or really telling anyone else what VEG exists for. It's telling ourselves. I think there's 12 of us in the team now. We're expanding at the moment. In the time of coronavirus, everyone wants to get into permaculture all of a sudden. And over time, this has evolved a lot. This is right now our best attempt to describe what excites us about why VEG exists, and cut to the chase of what we actually do, where we're heading. It's like that's our destination. It's our North Star, or our magnetic north. And if we're interested, I can share some more information with anyone who's maybe crafting one of these for something they're part of later on. But maybe I'll summarize this other second layer first. So that's like where we're heading. This next layer I call quality of life statements, or sometimes I call them core values or guiding principles. They really are your core values. So what is Veritable Gardens' core values, the things that we value the most, the core ingredients of a business that, and this is the interesting bit, that brings quality of life to all of us involved, all the key stakeholders or decision makers, which can be a flip for some people's thinking is, oh, hang on, the business exists it's a business, and a business exists by providing value to a customer. So we need to get clear on how we're going to provide value to customers, and maybe the business exists also for us because we want to make some sort of positive change in the world. So we need to focus on how we're going to make that positive change and how we're going to be in service of our customers. And the big trap there is that you move forward in service of those things and you take a hit and you burn yourselves out, and you suffer, and so you quit, right? And so your ability to actually be of service to your customers in the world it's not even there anymore because you've burned yourselves up and given up. And so the first question here is like, yes, we're a business, we have customers, we have a reason for existing, we want to have a positive impact on the world, and we're us, and a core function of this business is to inject quality into our lives. So what do we as a team need to be feeling is true in our bodies and our hearts as we go along towards delivering on our purpose, if we're feeling quality? Which is such an exciting question for me, because the question is the same as, what do we need to honor and make decisions to make more true over time to infuse so much joy and fulfillment and quality into everyone involved in this business that they never want to leave, which is like a huge part of what resilience is. So I'll take you through a few examples. When we first did this, I said earlier, we were kind of heading to the rocks. It was a bit of a mess, chaos. We didn't know what we were doing. We identified, well, what the major stresses we're feeling. We're not feeling professional. We're feeling disorganized and rushed a lot of the time. And you don't word these negatively in terms of what you want to get away from. That's the problem-solving mentality, trying to create less of something. You word it in terms of what you want to head toward. So we wanted to head towards feeling professional, organized, and unrushed. We want to feel that we're becoming more resilient from week to week, month to month. We all want to feel proud of Veg. We want to feel proud of the fact we're part of Veg and the fact that we're part of Veg's evolution. It's very important to us that we are offering genuine value to our customers and feel connected to them. And this is like, if we don't feel that, we'll start to actually lose a feeling of quality. It's important to us that we feel Veg is obtaining a tidy yield. And these wordings have evolved over a very long time, stories behind a lot of these sentences. And as a healthy cash flow. If those things aren't true, we start to feel a bit nervous, and the business itself stops feeling so healthy. We contribute to meaningful, fulfilling, and appropriately remunerated livelihoods. We conduct our business in a principled way with integrity and genuineness, and our business culture is based on mutual respect, open communication, and complementary diversity. So over a long time, we've honed in on those statements as the core, essential ingredients of a business, of a Veritable Gardens that's thriving and healthy, and really providing value for us as the people that run the business, and putting us in a great space to add value to customers, add value to the world. And so that's an example of what I mean by articulating how you want things to be. This is how we want Veg to be, deeply. What I think I might do now is I'll show you those same two layers in a family context and a personal context, so you can see how they apply across. So let's move to a family. So this is a context for my family. Actually, I've got a clearer one here somewhere. Here it is here. And as I said earlier, a family doesn't exist for a specific purpose. We're more interesting and multifaceted, and complex than that. So we don't have a single purpose statement for our family. We might have a purpose statement for specific periods or kind of projects. Like right now, we're getting a purpose statement together for us doing an experiment in school not being part of our lives. It's like a kind of a task or a project. But as a whole, we don't have a purpose. So we chucked a photo of us getting married in the middle instead to fill up that space and remind us of that beautiful day. And then we've got these quality of life statements. So it's the same thing. It's like, okay, now I'm not approaching this as what do I need to feel is true of the business I'm part of. If the business provides quality of life toward me, it's what do I need to feel true of being part of this family if being part of this family generates quality of life for me? What are the core ingredients? What are the things that are more important to us as a family than anything else in life? What matters the most to us? And this is where we're at. And again, this has evolved over time. So one biggie was like, we're a family, we want to be a close family. And it's that simple. If we're a family, we want to be close. We don't want to be not close. We want to be getting closer and feel tight and close as a unit. And if we don't feel that's true, quality of life suffers. And you get the idea. We're connected to the land our food comes from. We're in a good space to write out the coming challenges. Our children are happy, confident, free thinking, and learning skills relevant to the future. So these are all the key ingredients. We're physically and emotionally healthy and strong. If we're not feeling that, quality of life suffers. We're time rich, our home is alive. And one thing that still excites me to this day about this stuff, it's like, I equate it to the idea of DNA, you know, because you imagine you're holding a little eucalypt seed in your hand or on the end of your finger, like it's tiny, some of these seeds. And that thing has the potential to participate in the creation of a tree, but all the stuff the tree's made out of is not in that seed. Like a seed is not a compressed eucalypt tree that's been pressurized down to a point and you just add water and it expands. Like all the wood and the nutrients, the carbon, the leaves, the trunk, the branches, the roots, none of that stuff's in the seed. It doesn't exist yet. What exists in the seed is the DNA, which is like the core intention or a core intention. And then what happens is that when the conditions are right, it germinates and starts to grow. And you can see the seed as a portal or a gateway through which the possibility of a living tree kind of manifests in the world. I got this idea from a systems thinker called Peter Senge. Anyway, this is the same for me. These quality of life statements, they don't prescribe any particular shape to our life, just as a seed doesn't prescribe the exact shape of the oak tree or the eucalypt or whatever. And we trust these enough and lean into these enough when we make decisions such that the form of our life, the shape of our life is whatever it needs to be to keep these true. And it's a surprise to us. You know, the decisions we make are sometimes surprising or radically different to what everyone else is doing. And yet if we trust these and honor these, we generate a shape to our lives that's that fits, that brings us quality of life. Rather than saying, oh, well, everyone else is doing this, or these should be our goals. It's like, this matters first, and now let's choose goals or objectives in service of these deeper things. Okay, I'll show you how I've applied it in a personal context, and then we can figure out what we do from there. I've got it open. Here's an example from a permaculture design property called Meliadora, and so sometimes I work with other people to help them articulate this stuff. This is a real process, you know. They hadn't done a lot of this kind of work, and we had like 6 2-hour meetings or something, and really went right into it, got quite deep. And you can see they've articulated a purpose statement, and they've got their own quality of life statements that are unique to them. These are the key things they need to feel are true of Meliadora as a permaculture property, 2.5 acres, moving forward. It's managed, governed as a harmonious whole. It's both somewhere people live and have their home, and it's a place where what's happening is shared as a learning opportunity to inspire others. And I'll show you a personal context example. I do something else in the middle I'm not going to tell you about here, maybe another time. I don't just put a picture of me in there, but these are my quality of life statements, like the core things that over time I've figured out need to be true if I'm feeling quality in my life. and I need to go back to these constantly because life throws me off course. And what's today about? Today for me, and every day, every week, every month, every year of my life is about making these, whatever it is, 7 statements more true. Because I know from having crash tested them that if these things are true, life is amazing and wonderful, and I feel deeply fulfilled, and it feels meaningful. So I'm healthy, vibrant, and alive, and in my body. I am healthy, vibrant, alive, and in my body. Sort of a no-brainer. If that's not true, quality of life suffers. I'm doing, creating, and being what I love in a way that harnesses and hones my gifts while serving others in a more beautiful world. I realize that if I'm doing something that feels non-aligned with that, quality of life starts to suffer. So it's like, I don't want to be doing anything professionally that's not in that space. And as soon as I feel it departing from that, I want to make a new decision because life's too short to do anything else. I've added one about prospering, which is about ensuring that we have the resources. I have the resources I need. I didn't have that. That was one that got added in over time because everything else was true, but I didn't necessarily have the financial resources. Well, the lack of financial resources started to impact quality of life, so that came in there, and now I make decisions that honor that as well. So I still do all the other stuff. I'm still doing, being, creating what I love. I'm also filtering it or testing it against what does that mean for prosperity? Is that going to lose money, make money, be neutral? I have a statement about my relationship with Manda, my incredible partner, the kind of father I would like to be. And a lot of these are challenges, self-challenges, but I know that the truer that feels, the better I feel, the more quality is about my relationship to the community I'm part of, and my relationship to the rest of the natural world. And so maybe we'll stop there and get a few comments and reflections. But hopefully you appreciate that there's a sort of a certain approach to it. It draws on the distinction, but there's no goals in here. There's no decisions in here. That's one important I should probably stress, is that this is something deeper than any goal or any particular decision that we're going to make decisions toward. It's the essence of what we're about, the core ingredients of quality of life, everybody involved. And there's no goals, no decisions. And it's hard work, it's like reaching into your heart and pulling it up into your mind and articulating it and seeing how it feels and then trying it out. And it's an ever-evolving work in progress. But it's the start of holistic decision making. And until you've taken step 1, of course, you can't take any further steps. You can't make decisions towards something you haven't articulated. Any comments, questions, resonances, non-resonances, anything like that before we move along? One thing I'd be open to, I'll just say quickly, is if anyone was unclear about either a purpose statement or a quality of life statement, I am offering right now to work with you, as long as this is being recorded and all these other people are watching, to help you refine or reveal or discover one of these things. I'm sure many of you have this kind of stuff, right? It's like, I don't have any illusions. This is one of many approaches out there. But it'd be good to hear from 1 or 2 or 3 of you about where you're at right now, and whether you're kind of sensing, oh, right, I can see how this stuff applies to what you were saying earlier.
I think something that's really striking me is that, as you're saying, it's not specifically associated around goals. It's acts that are associated to your values, and that in itself creates a rich, full, and meaningful life. So to have that shift away from that goal mindset.
Yeah, great to hear. Yeah, it was huge for me. Rena.
That's really great, and they read beautifully, and it's really great to see how we can really see, I can see how you place yourself as a central resource in your business, and how, we talk about sustainability, but then we drive ourselves into the ground trying to kind of, deliver it. And this is a really refreshing approach around really valuing the central resource and the core values that inform the decision. So thanks.
Cheers, Rena.
Really applies to our situation really well.
Dan, I'll just ask a quick question if that's all right.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, as an example, like in your daily life, would you be, if you were facing a decision, would you be like drawing to your mind your like supporting statements, say in like a personal context or whatever, and like choosing a course of action based off those statements?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Good question. Yeah. So there's a few ways that we'll move into a second after noticing where you are relative to this. We'll move into a space of exploring, well, how do you actually make decisions that honor this? And there's a few ways you can do that. One is initially a little bit more clunky and formal. You can go through and say, okay, I'm considering a decision. What impact would it have on this quality of life statement and this one, and there's certain other what Alan Savory called testing questions. What's happened over time for me is it's become part of, it's sort of merged with my, I don't know, sunk down into my cells or something, or my bones. And so it's more of an intuitive thing. So as I'm making decisions, the first thing is to start catching the fact that I'm always making decisions. Oh, I'm making a decision right now, and that decision has consequences for where my life heads. I want to pay attention to it, and I want to make it in a way that is in conversation with the things that I know matter to me the most. And one of the things I noticed right off the bat was I was constantly making all these decisions that directly, immediately decreased my own quality of life because of social pressures or whatever patterns and habits and urgency, addiction, all that kind of stuff. So just to be able to catch that, hang on. And initially it was almost like I couldn't see that I was making a decision or that a decision was about to happen. I could look back and say, okay, so I'm at this event and I'm just having all these conversations that feel bullshit and superficial, and I don't actually want to be here, and I really wanted to meditate or work on my book or take the kid for a walk, or my kid for a walk. Quality of life is taking a hit right now. All right, I'm feeling that because I made a decision half an hour ago. I said yes to being here. And rather than feeling like a victim and hating the situation and these people are idiots, taking responsibility, saying, I made the decision that got me there. Interesting. and then maybe I'll notice myself as I'm making a decision, and slowly I've gotten to the point where it's like, I'm about to make a decision, and all right, I get to make it. It's my decision, and I'm going to take responsibility for making the decision in a way that honors what quality of life is for me and for my family and the business and the other things I'm part of. And so it's become more intuitive over time, but there's a few useful ways of doing it more, I don't know, consciously or rigorously at the beginning that I can take you through. Okay, should we keep rolling? How we go? Yeah, we better. So we can at least touch on the other three bits. So we touched on I gave you a few examples of what it means in holistic decision making to articulate how you really want things to be, what you need to be feeling is true. And a lot of this is about discovering what you need to be feeling is true, not what you think intellectually or rationally needs to be true, what you actually need to feel. Because at the end of the day, that's what defines quality of life. It's in the feeling space. It's like, well, logically, I've done all this rational work, therefore I should feel happy, but I don't. It's like, oh no, I've got to listen to my feelings. So the next bit is, okay, you've articulated how you want life to be, is paying attention and noticing where you are now relative to that. So it's not just noticing where I am in general, it's noticing where I am relative to how I want things to be. And this sets up an incredibly powerful tension. And the idea is that the more clearly I can be in honest, authentic contact with any discrepancy between where I am right now and how I've identified I want my life to be, the clearer I can make that. And in a sense, I don't want to say the more painful, but the more prominent I can make that discrepancy, the more that can start to become a mobilizing force in my life toward closing the discrepancy and making decisions, which I do by making decisions. So to give a real simple example, the way we do it with Very-Edible Gardens, and I should mention that I said I've gone off the charts with this stuff. I've shared Very-Edible Gardens kind of global business-wide context with you, which is that purpose statement, quality of life statements, and some other stuff we won't get into today. And we also have a context for each of the key, the relationship between Veg and each of its key staff members, and that's gradually rolling out to all staff members, because let's face it, all staff members are key staff members or team members. We have a context for our permaculture design certificate, you know, purpose statement, quality of life statements, all the rest. We have context for sub areas of veg. So we just have these things, and it's like every time we're going to engage in anything, like a new person is coming on board, or we're going to start a new area of the business, or we're going to do a new event or whatever, it's a no-brainer. It's like, first thing we do, articulate a context. What's the purpose? What are the core things that we all need to feel are true of this? And until we've done that, let's not even start, because we know what'll happen. We'll drift off track. And until we've identified those things, we can't honor them. So with Veg's global one, however, every 6 weeks, our pattern is that I'll share it again. We do a kind of, we cruise around it. Is that the right one? No, it's more, so you can share that. And to me, this has been one of the most exciting and powerful discoveries, because to do this, we meet, right? Like currently we're doing it mostly on Zoom, but in the old world order, we'd do it face to face, 2 months plus back. And frankly, our meetings used to suck. And the more meetings I go to, I realize the more meetings suck these days. And one way I like to think about the suckfulness of most meetings these days is, if you imagine getting some video footage of people arriving at the meeting and then leaving the meeting an hour or two later, turn off the sound and just look at the difference in their facial expression and their posture. You know, so let's say they walk in and they look half alive and maybe they're smiling and chatting. You look at them walk out of there and they're like, they're semi-corpses. You know, they just look demoralized and deflated and bored, and not to mention their body language throughout the meeting. It's like, what are we doing? Why are we having meetings that decrease our state and decrease the quality of our experience in the moment? And as I looked into that, what I realized is that most meetings start with, guess what? Goals. They start with goals or objectives. So that's what an agenda is. You know, it's a bunch of goals. It's like, okay, we're going to meet about this topic, and here, you know, about this goal, this objective, and we're going to discuss the problems. Because as I said before, you've got goals, you've got problems. How are we going to navigate this problem, this problem, this problem? And why does the meeting suck? Because it follows that same old pattern. And so the way we approach meetings is we don't have a pre-existing agenda. We might have a theme sometimes, but the main agenda is start by checking in against our context, our quality of life statements, which is at a higher order or level than goals, and seeing what's going on and using that to rapidly hone in on the greatest discrepancy right now in this moment between where we are and how we most deeply want things to be. And it's really simple. It's ridiculous how quick and simple it is, and I'll show you how it works. You can do it in 2 minutes. And then we're going to design the rest of the meeting on addressing what we've just identified as the most significant potential we have right now to increase quality of life for all of us. And if you do that, guess how you leave feeling the meeting? You're like, hell yeah, you know, like, yes. We just honed in on something that's blocking us all from feeling deeply fulfilled by being part of this thing, and we did something about it. And we feel pumped. Anyway, so the way we do it is that we sit down, we pull this thing open, and we start in the middle. We say, okay, one of us reads it out. We read out their purpose statement. And as it's being read, everyone else is just sitting with themselves and not so much thinking about and analyzing it. It might be a bit of that. Someone might say grammatically we could do that, or what's the definition of that word? But more than that, just letting it land in your body. And how does it feel? Does that really resonate with my intuitive sense of why veg exists right now? And quite often something will come up. You're like, you know what? I think we might have moved on from that, or there's nothing in there about such and such, and I'm realizing that really matters to me. Like at some point early on in Veg's journey, we realized that one of the main things we enjoyed about running a business is that we got to meet people we liked and give them jobs. So basically pay them to hang out with us. And that brought us a lot of quality of life. So we got that in there, and that's evolved over time to the fact that we love that a core part of Veg's purpose is to grow our capabilities individually and collaboratively. It's not a byproduct or a side effect. It's a core part of Veg's purpose is to grow and develop and evolve us as individuals and as a group as we do this other bit. Anyway, we'll see how that lands, and everyone will basically say one of 3 things. They'll say yes, no, or maybe. So someone will read it out, and you'll either say, yep, that resonates, that works for me, that's feeling aligned with what our purpose is all about, or they might say, no, it's not working, it's clunking, or whatever. or they could be a maybe. I'm not really sure. I'll put down a maybe. And all we do, I'll show you what, I'll actually do it right here. You see that? No. Oh yeah, I can do it. There we go. So someone says maybe, some people say yes. All these things disappearing, do them up there. Someone might say no, whatever. And then we move around. We don't talk or discuss or anything. It's just like, okay, cool. All right, someone want to read out one of these? All right, we conduct our business in a principled way with integrity and integrity. Same thing. So you just hear it and you're like, is that true for me? Forget about everyone else. Does that feel true in my body right now? And I'll say, yeah. Someone else, you know, I've got a better plan here. Here we go. I'll just move these across. Someone says yes. Yes, again, whatever. There might be a maybe. Another yes. I'll just pretend there's only 4 of us at this meeting. These days there's a lot more. And so on. We go around and you get the idea. When we started this process, it was mostly crosses. Because a lot of these things weren't true at all. And that's why we started the process. And you can see how it's pretty quick. It's just like we read each one out, people sit with it. Maybe sometimes ask for clarification, but it's just like, yeah, that's true for me. No, it's not. And if you're not sure, it's a maybe. And we just zip around, and within 2 or 3 minutes, we've got, and we timestamp them. Oh, actually, I don't know if I should be checking with my colleagues about sharing all this, but oh wow. So this is on the 12th of September 2019. That's what happened. 29th of November 2019. So you can see these are maybes. Ticks, maybes. 6th of March, 3rd of April. Isn't that cool? You can get to see the evolution of how we're all feeling about the business over time, but it's not just that nice being able to look what happened over time. After the meeting, now it's going to take me a while to get rid of all these. We'll just ignore those ones and let's use this last one. We just do a quick scan and we look for where there's the least ticks. And the idea is that wherever there's the least ticks, that's the space of the greatest potential for us to make decisions that increase our quality of life being involved in beach. So this one over here is pretty obvious. It's mostly ticks, but there's a bunch of maybes over here. And so at this point, we have an agenda for the meeting, which is to talk about why these are maybes, not to talk anyone out of the fact they put maybe, to understand. So it's like, who put maybe? Tell us what's going on for you. Why is this not true? Or why are you not sure it's true? Oh, look, you guys you just put me on too many jobs last week. And all right, okay, let's talk about them. Well, let's understand what's happening. And ultimately, the point of the meeting now is to either discover that we've already got some wheels in motion that will probably turn those crosses and or maybes into ticks, or we're going to make a decision right now about what we're going to do before the next meeting to make that the case. And the crazy thing about this, it's one of those ridiculously common sense things that still blows me away, is that if you articulate what matters most to you, you check in on how you are, what your reality is relative to that regularly, and you make decisions designed at closing the gap, guess what happens? The gap gets closed. And that's the same way as saying quality of life increases. So it's like, wow, we can consciously, using feeling and thinking, have an approach here that reliably increases quality of life. And as I was saying at the beginning, it was mostly maybes and crosses. Now sometimes it's 100% ticks, you know, and it's not that, oh, that's good. We'd rather it was ticks than not. We'd rather it is what it is. You know, we'd rather know what reality is. And if it was all ticks for too long, we'd have to up our game, you know, and maybe make our purpose more ambitious or something, because it's exciting to keep evolving. Same thing with the family, same deal. We do it less as a family these days. It's less, you know, we don't do it on a 6-week cycle or whatever. We pull it out periodically and we check in. How's it going? How are we feeling? Are we feeling close? Are we learning, growing, creating, and laughing? Is our home feeling alive? Where do we want to focus our efforts? And personally, I do it up to recently on a day-by-day level, but you know, at least 2 or 3 times a week. Just, okay, how am I tracking? How am I going in terms of relationship with my wife? How am I going with the kids? How am I going with my work? I definitely need to get outside and hug a tree today, or do some animal tracking, or because of that itch is not being scratched, and I know it's already impacting quality of life, and I know it's those maybe that, you know, it's like, oh, I'm half connected, half disconnected. That's going to turn into a not connected unless I actually make a decision and go make something happen. Okay, geez, I got a bit of momentum up there, but does that kind of all make sense? So we're moving from articulate what matters most to you personally, as a family, as a business, for whatever, and at the very least you need quality of life statements or core values. If it's exists for a reason, you also have a purpose statement. Check in against that, so figure out where are we relative to this, and now we can make decisions that that take us from one to the other, which I guess we'll get onto shortly. But any reflections, comments? Good to hear a voice or two. 23. I think the number of us here is remaining relatively constant. That's one piece of information, right? Like if someone was leaving every 2 minutes, that would be a sign that something's not working.
Yeah, I think for me, I found that really interesting. So I work basically in child protection area. So I work with families looking to towards their goals of increasing safety within the home. So I'm just seeing so many potentials for eliciting that willingness and enjoyment of that process in some of the people I work with. So I just think that's the potential. I also just found it very interesting when you were first talking about having that discrepancy between where we are now and where we want our life to be. I was a little bit nervous around that because I thought, is that going to be a bit of a destination idolization? But the way you've taken through that process of really specific actions, it makes it such a collaborative and positive process, not like this is a bad thing we're here.
Yeah, not beating yourself over the back by how different they are or how crap your life is. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, thank you for those reflections. That is a really interesting one. Sometimes people say, Dan, I don't really want to be honest with myself about how I want my life to be because I'm just worried that my life's so different from them, I'll never get there. I'm like, that's your choice, but that's an interesting way to approach life, right? Is to actually deny what your heart of hearts wants to be true of your life and not do anything about it. And it's definitely not going to magically become true by itself. And another thing about quality of life statements is because they're so much deeper than goals and objectives. Like you saw mine, I want to be in a great relationship with my wife. I want to be a wonderful father to my children. I want to be in touch with the rest of the natural world. I want to be doing stuff that's meaningful. It's like none of that is unachievable in my lifetime. And one of the other things that still blows me away is that when I bring my focus to this process rather than the usual stuff of problems and goals and distractions and urgency, stuff changes really fast. You know, like I can make a lot of decisions in 1 week that transform, where I'm at next week, or sometimes it takes weeks and months. But the more I do this stuff, the more the more I take responsibility for doing these steps, like clarifying, noticing, deciding. The more things shift. And initially, I do have to give up a bit of. I get to blame the world for how my life is, because there's some hidden payoffs to that. But the payoff of owning that, well, I'm actually responsible for what's going on. The payoff is, I get to write my own story from here, and wow, things can shift pretty fast. Any other comments or reflection? I mean, I'm conscious I'm asking for comments or reflections. Someone speaks for a minute, and then I go on for another 5 minutes. Interesting to notice one's patterns, isn't it?
Could you give an example of kind of navigating a grey area? Because there's no perfect decision a lot of the time to align with all those values. There might be a compromise.
Yeah, sure.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'd be happy to. And I'm glad you used the word compromise because I just want to share a few thoughts about that. So that's a common question, and I think that's a conventional pattern in our culture too. It's like, yeah, you can articulate all this stuff, but life's complex, and the best you can really hope for is a compromise. Like that all going well, you'll make some of those things partially true, and it happens. I can approach my own life in that way, and I can certainly approach relationships in that way. It's like, well, you want this, I want that. They're in different directions, so let's both get half of what you want, and that is another name for that is a lose-lose situation. Neither of you got what you wanted. And my approach to all this is rather than settling for compromise and unconsciously kind of steering the conversation in that direction with myself or others, what I'm looking for is harmonize. So to move from compromise to harmonize. And so the question I always ask is, without noticing my tendency to grab images or ideas or goals or objectives and kind of make them the solution, if I can get those out of my mind and I can just deeply immerse in all these things that matter to me, and I can even pretend, I can imagine the possibility that there is a decision here, there is some form or shape to this day or week or month or year or life that deeply honors all of them and harmonizes them all and reconciles all these different things, what would it be? And that's been a massive thing for me. And I don't recall an example of where I've ever had to resort back to compromise. You know, there's certain design theorists that say all design is compromise, and I disagree. As a last resort, maybe. I know what you mean. It's not necessarily easy, and there might be times where there will be times where you feel like you make a decision to inject truth into one. Like, let's say I realized I'm not spending enough time in nature, so I go hiking for a week, then I come back and realize that I don't know, the rent auto payment defaulted because I didn't honor the prosperity piece. And yet, if I ask the question, well, how can I increase the truth of my felt connectivity with the natural world? I'll give you an example of the sort of thing that happens for me every other week at least. Okay, what I need to do, I want to feel more connected with the rest of nature. I want to keep making, I want to keep our prosperity at a certain level. I want to be spending more time with the kids, and I want to be progressing. I've got one of my projects called Living Design Process. How could I honor all of those things in the course of this week or this day? And then it'll be like, hang on a second, why don't I see if the kids want to come with me to this consultancy project on a farm or on a piece of land with all these trees? They're going to pay me for it. And it turns out that the part of the time their kids end up playing with the kids that were already there in a way that the parents are grateful for because they get mind-guided attention, you know, blah, blah, blah. That's the sort of example I mean. So it wasn't a compromise. It wasn't like, sorry, kids, you know, I'll try and cut the job short so I can get back and we can go on that walk. And I'm out there and I'm just blissing out. Like, quality of life is going off the charts. I'm like, holy shit. Like, all this shit that really matters to me is happening all together right now. And how can I chase more of that? So I don't know if that's helpful, but to me, there's a mindset thing there. And if I look hard enough and are creative enough and are less attached enough to how it's going to look, these really surprising and sometimes shocking decisions and solutions emerge out of nowhere that honor all of these things. God, long answers. Was that useful though?
Yeah, thank you.
Great. We should probably keep rolling, right? We've only got 40 minutes and we've still got a couple of phases. So let's move on to the third, which is make decisions. Maybe I'll just share just reorient ourselves to the here we go, to the big picture here. Share. So we've set the scene. We've spent a bit of time on number one, number two. Of course, it's a thing. There's aspects to it. There's more to be said, but we've at least touched on it. Let's talk a little bit about making decisions that take you there. I mean, the example I just gave was an example of me making a decision that was taking me there. But I will share a few more flavors about that. So one is well, just this general idea that a decision can take you somewhere, or that all decisions take us somewhere. Because often we make decisions to solve a problem or to respond to an invitation or an opportunity or to meet some sort of want or need. We don't necessarily realize, or I certainly didn't. It was a really epiphany for me was like, oh, well, whenever I make a decision, it takes me one direction or another, or it slows me up or slows me down or speeds me up. But it affects the direction I'm going in. And so that when I make a decision, I'm always deciding towards something. Even though a lot of the time we're trying to solve problems, solving a problem is trying to decide something away, like to get rid of the problem. But at the same time, even if that's your focus, your decisions are taking you somewhere. And so now it's like, oh, right, so decisions take me in a certain direction. And now I've got a direction that I'm really excited about heading in. So how do I make decisions that take me from where I am to where I want to be? And at the highest level, it's kind of obvious. It's just like, have a look, you know, like, okay, here are my quality of life statements. Here we are today. How can I make a decision about this day or week or month that makes the quality of life statements more true? So at that kind of high level, you can just start asking that question. And you also saw that the way I shared from those VEG meetings is that we've already articulated how we want things to be. We notice where we are by doing these rapid audits or check-ins, and within a couple of minutes at the start of the meeting, we've identified an area where there's potential for us to max out even more on quality of life, on bliss. And then straight away, it's like, okay, what decision are we going to make right now in this meeting, where the purpose of that decision is to increase the truth of that thing that we identified wasn't all ticks. And so there's that level. A more, I guess, taking it to the next level, there's an approach which Alan Savory came up with it, and he had these things called the testing decisions. And the idea is that you think of your context, your quality of life statements, and maybe a purpose statement as a filter, a filtration device. Sometimes I explain it in terms of imagine a multi-stage water filter. Maybe I'll draw it here. I'll find a little space here. I'll draw something. Got there. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then imagine the decision is like a little marble, and you drop it in the top of this multi-stage filtration mechanism. And this is part of where the meaning of the word holistic comes in, as Alan Savory pointed out. These different questions, they invite you to consider the decision you're making from a number of different perspectives. So the idea is you propose a decision, a course of action you might make, and then you test it against a series of questions that ask you to consider it from different perspectives. And I'll tell you what those are. And if anyone's interested, I've got kind of workbooks and stuff I can send through, or sheets that go into a bit more detail. But one of them is that initial level is like, to what extent does this decision, this course of action we're considering, take us toward quality of life? So just ask you to think about that. Okay. Oh, yeah, this one takes us towards all of them. This one towards some of them. This one would detract from those ones. Another question is around would this course of action create any negative unintended consequences? So it asks you to think about that. Okay, yeah, I could do this and it would serve this quality of life statement, that quality of life statement. But it would mean, it's like thinking about it, it would mean that I wasn't in New Zealand for my mother's birthday, as an example. And thinking about that, she's going to be really upset about that. And so that's going to have consequences that are going to impact my life. So I just want to think about that. And maybe I should see if there's another way of making the decision, whether it's just letting her know or making sure I send her a great present, for example. So that's part of thinking about it holistically, is not does it take it towards quality of life? Can I anticipate any negative unintended consequences, whether social, ecological, or economic? I'm just trying to, some of the questions sort of, they refer to some deeper layers that we haven't gotten into. So maybe I'll leave it there. There's another 3, and I can send through resources if you're interested. But the idea is there's a more rigorous and logical way of testing a decision against a number of different layers. So it's like a filtration process, which is really great. And there's a kind of a disclaimer, well, not a disclaimer. There's a check at the end which says, ask yourself and answer this question honestly. Have you authentically tested this decision honestly against each of these questions, or have you just gone through the motions because you'd already made the decisions and you just want to give yourself another rationale for doing what you knew you were going to do anyway? That's a really important one. My wife called me out on that a lot early on, because we're clever people. We can end up using holistic decision making as an excuse for doing the same old thing we always did. And if you don't use it properly, it's why pretend? So that's a little bit about the decision-making bit. The last bit, what I need to touch on, at least briefly, is this thing around, okay, you've articulated what matters most to you. You've checked in as to where you are relative to that right now, today, in this moment. You've made a decision designed at closing the gap, using that tension of the discrepancy as an exciting, kind of motivating energy to close the gap. And this final component that's really critical is acknowledging the world is complex, and no matter how great your decision may have been in the moment, so much is changing that you will drift off course. Like a simple example was, we made a decision to hire a new manager several years back, a guy called Jeremy, to manage the warehouse, what we call the doing stuff division. Veg does stuff, teaches stuff, and designs stuff, and he was managing doing stuff. Anyway, that was a really big decision, and we used our quality of life statements and all that, and we went through the process, and then we made the decision, and at that moment it was like, okay, how are we going to look for and find evidence that the decision is actually drifting off course? And so we consciously set up kind of information generating things. Like a simple examples, we had the person that was training, he was taking over, that was training him up, check in at least twice a week, and we checked in each week and so on, and we looked for any early evidence that things were getting off track. And the idea is that no matter how great a decision-making process is, and if we've used holistic decision-making, we've done all this work, we don't want to let it all fall over at the last minute by saying, we've done all this work, we've done our context, we've done our... It's a great decision. How can it be a bad decision? We're just going to make the decision and let it go. Because if you don't check in on it, so often it'll drift off and it'll end up biting you on the bum. And the point is that if this is you making decisions directly towards your context to what quality of life is for you, you make an actual decision. So this is kind of like the ideal pathway. You make a decision, and initially it follows that pathway, and then for whatever reason it starts to drift off. And over time, it drifts further and further and further and further away. And the difference between these two lines, like the ideal direct path to quality of life, which is ideal because it's never going to be a direct line. Like it's going to be a waving line. The idea is that you go this way and then pick it up and then come back in. But the difference between those two lines is energy, stress, effort, cost to close the gap. So if you pick it up when it's tiny, it's like, oh, hang on, Jeremy did that. That was absolutely not what we want to happen with that regard to, he didn't do this. He wouldn't, the silly example would be, he was a bit rude to a customer or something. Jeremy's quite the opposite. But, something cropped up and it's quite small and we can have a conversation in the moment. What happened there? Okay, yeah, look, it's really important that that's such and such. Rather than we find out that a month later that this person has been rude to 10 customers and someone's trying to sue us, or, things get out of hand. Or you make a decision early in your life to study law because your parents and their parents have always been lawyers, so you study law. You study it and you start working, and 10 years later into the whole process, you discover that quality of life sucks and you hate law. There's a massive gap there, right, between the life path that would have directly served quality in your life and what you've actually done. And it's really intimidating. It's scary to think, how the hell am I going to get back across? So the idea is the sooner we can pick up those discrepancies and course correct, the better. Which I've noticed brings us to about time, and I'd love to end with a few reflections to hear from some of you. I want to say briefly too that I did this. My volition was just like people reaching out and asking about it. I thought I'll give it a crack. I hadn't done a webinar before, see how it feels. I've learned a whole lot of stuff, like how clunky it is to drive Illustrator and Zoom at the same time. I don't have any intention apart from that, but I would invite you all to be in touch afterwards, because I'm open to doing something, like a paid longer course maybe or whatever, or I can help in various ways, send resources and all that. But yeah, at this stage it was just a bit of an experiment, bit of fun. I've enjoyed it. I hope you have, and I'd love to hear a few closing reflections before we wrap up. Even you know what would be great if you're up for it is if we do a quick whip round where it's like 10 seconds each, and I hear from most, if not everybody. Let's try. I'll call out names, and you got the right to pass. You make the right decision for you. But Claire Graham, would you care to say?
Yeah, that was fantastic. It sparked a great conversation between us, and we kind of started this process, but in a very goal orientated way. So I think, yeah, it'll help us move forward.
Awesome, thanks. Claire. All right, yeah, got you too. Hopefully those aren't goals. All right, we'll keep rolling because I'd like to hear a few more voices. But thanks for that, Sam. Can we have a few words out of you?
Yeah, that last bit really stuck. That I'm away from the line, but the decisions I've already started making are bringing me back.
Great.
And writing it down.
Yeah.
Actually getting something I can come back to, something I've been afraid of doing.
Yes, yeah. It's funny, isn't it? So often we just don't want to go there.
Yeah.
But it's good to have a baseline reference. So yeah, thanks, Sam.
Thank
Debbie?
Yes, thank you so much, Dan. For me, it's affirmed some of what I've been doing, but also been a really, really important reminder that it's easy to drift.
Yeah.
And I need to, before I drift too far, think about bringing it back. So thank you.
Cheers. Good to see you again, Debbie. Jenny Flocco-Newton.
Hey, Dan. An absolute game changer. I've been drifting for too long and I'm trying to get myself back on course.
Awesome. That's great. It's so great to hear. Shannon.
Yeah, great. I think this is a really worthwhile experiment and I'd be interested in finding out more about the whole process.
Fantastic. Thank you. Tom and Alex?
Yeah, really good. I also thought you drove the Illustrator really well. That was you visually communicated things excellently.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
For us, we're both kind of flux, so it's a really great time to be thinking in these kind of ways.
Brilliant. Sorry, were you going to add something?
No, I'm good.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Marco, I'd love to hear a few words all the way from Chile.
Oh, thank you, Dan. It is 10 p.m. here, so it was my 10th meeting of the day.
Oh,
and I think it was the best of the day. You were very clear. Yeah, thank you so much. I'll keep in touch with you.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Yeah. Thanks for representing the rest of the world. Jackie.
Yeah, thank you. It was all really good. Really looking forward to putting together some quality of life statements. I really liked your family one. A lot of those seem to be quite similar to what I would choose. And just looking forward to all the little daily decisions, making sure that they're actually taking us in a direction where we want to go instead of just drifting around aimlessly.
Yeah, and lots of aspects of family life. I mean, it's easy for things to get. Great, thanks, Jackie. Vincent and Sam.
Yeah, that was all really fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. I think for me, everything's been really fantastic, but I'm just looking back at the decision that I made earlier in this week, looking at how I went about doing that, and I can see now that I'm trying to impose certain values on it and trying to make it fit where it really fit. So yeah, and I guess that being able to review that line direction, having that constant review of how do we get back over is going to be excellent. So thank you.
And for me, thank you for your time, Dan, and your knowledge. It's fantastic. I think, early on when and a few people mentioned this, flipping of the quality of life, problems and goals, like flipping that on its head and working from there is really great. On top of that, basically just distilling all that noise and all the information out there about, making decisions and all that sort of stuff. You've communicated in a really simple and precise way, which I think makes it actually, it makes it pretty simple and easy to follow, and can consistently return to the goal.
Awesome, thanks for that. It's affirming, great to hear. Thank you, Rima. But obviously we're going to go a couple of minutes late, but can't stop now.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Really thoroughly enjoyed this session and have looked forward to experiencing your work for some time now. Like Sam said, I really love the flipping on the head around goal setting, but you've taken the concept of chunking things down into sort of bite-sized pieces, but you've put the heart at the centre of it, which feels really true to sustainability. And I loved the your references to the momentum that occurs when you operate from that place. So deep thanks, and look forward to more. Would love to be a player in that.
Awesome, yeah. Look forward to bumping into you on the street
Dan.
soon. Thanks very much. Ken. Yeah, I'll
click my mute here.
Done. You're good. I unmuted you.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you for everything. I'm calling from Canada, so another
yes,
out of Australia person. Loved it. I've been reading and aware of it through text, and so to hear a different articulation and a vision of how it's actually applied was wonderful. Challenging around how I use it with individuals and couples, so to redefine purpose differently is both challenging and affirming. And I love the piece of how to use it while you're moving forward, like the checks and exits, and how to use it as an accountability or a tool as well. So that was very useful. Thank you.
Oh, great to hear. Thanks, Ken. Andrea, greetings.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, Dan. Thank you. It's brought together a lot of different kind of concepts and processes that I've used in my work and simplified them really nicely. So I'd be really keen to, to have a look at some of your resources. I found it a bit fast in the middle there because I was actually trying to do it while I was sitting here. And at the break, the pigs got out, so I had to go and sort that out.
It was urgent and important, right?
Yeah. So I really enjoyed it. Love to see more.
Great. Yeah. So I don't forget, I'm recording this, and my intention was a bunch of people said they couldn't make it because they see recording. So if anyone has any issue with me sharing it with them and potentially sharing it on the holistic decision-making site, just let me know, and I can cut you out or whatever. But that's the plan, which means you'll all have access to it. I'll email it to you so you can watch the fast bits in slow motion. Mary Conlon.
Oh, hi. Thanks, Dan. I thought the whole thing went really well. For me, I liked the stories around, I'm familiar with what you've got on your website, but hearing the stories and the examples really made a big difference, I think, to how accessible it is. I think the biggest thing I'll take away from today is the important, non-urgent quadrant, and I think the relationship to doing more of that and clearing space for quality of life is really important.
So great to hear. It's awesome. Thanks. And yes, your friend.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I really enjoyed that, and there's a lot to think about, all those different elements that you touched on, and I really have enjoyed learning just the value in articulating where you are right now, and not getting too caught up in where you want to go, and just the way you highlighted the value of doing that. So that thanks for everything, and I'd be really interested in the resources as well.
Yeah, great. All right, I'll send some stuff through. Thank you. Gloria and Lance on the home straight here.
Hi.
Hi, where are you calling from?
Bondi.
Yep.
Well, I found it just fantastic, and I really appreciate all the resources. Like, also, I think particularly when you did the graft, like from where the purpose, the quality of life, like the in the middle where it really comes out like to a map.
Yeah, the context.
Yeah, and I think that's what actually we were in the process of doing that, and so we will just continue doing that. And it's good to see like a complete map in such a way, and really encouraging and empowering. Yes.
Oh, great to hear. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. It was great.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Thanks. All right, Cecilia Billier, Tasmania. Is that right?
Yes. Hello. Yes, from Tasmania. And yeah, I just want to say that it's great to know that we can have a tool to make decisions. Like, for example, I really struggle to make decisions, and knowing just to put in a box the important stuff and the not important stuff. It just helps you to be, okay, we need to do this now or not, and just feel less pressure in what we do. So yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Pleasure.
Very interesting about how you talk about complexity of decisions and their outcomes, and the fact that it's really important to focus on the path that your decision has led you on and correct that. I think that's something that I don't do enough, because I kind of just get caught up in whatever I've been doing and don't focus on where it's meant to be taking me. So I thought that was interesting.
Great, thank you. Virginia, oh, this is great. Knitting, quality of life. Hopefully that's not like, it's not in the bottom right quadrant, it's up in the top right.
Yeah, I'm making myself a scarf.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
My husband's cutting up tuna and my son's making pies, so it's all very busy here.
Oh, great.
I've learned heaps from today. I'd already, I've got friends that did your weekend course last year, I think, and talked to them a lot about this. But yeah, you've shared so many things that I now need to go away and think about, and I'm keen to use some of the templates because goal settings never really resonated with me that well.
Yeah.
Not too fixed, and if I go off course, then I beat myself up and think, oh, I've failed. So this is a much more quality, feeling based way of correcting things. So yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Thanks, Virginia. Brendan, who I should let everyone know is part of Veg, so he can speak to the accuracy of my stories about what Veg gets up to, or otherwise. How was that for you, Brendan?
Yeah, good. If my mic's working and you can hear me.
Yeah, all good. Yep.
Yeah, that was great, Dan. Thanks. I've been meaning to hassle you about actually doing some sort of online holistic decision-making thing. It's been great to be a part of it. So I started with Veg over 2 years ago now, 2.5 years ago, and it was all new to me, and the way the business operates, where these quality of life statements serving your happiness rather than you serving some machine of a business. And it really doesn't matter if you drop in or out, because the business will just continue on. But focusing from a people perspective, it has, to reuse that term that's been mentioned, the game changer. And I haven't actually got one for myself, and which is, I'm sort of building up into a fever pitch of, I better do this for myself, which is really exciting. And that's sort of where I'm at with it.
Cool, great to hear. Thanks, BF or Brendan. Lucky last, is it? Barry from Ballarat.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. It's been really good because I've been working through your website stuff and trying to work out how to get this working for me, but having the context and the conversation going on in the background has been really helpful. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Barry. Now, Jenny, have we heard from you? This is one of the non-video people. I think we've heard from Virginia and Mary. Don't know, can't see it. All right, we'll wrap it up. Thanks, everyone. I'll send through an email, some stuff, and link to the video. Yeah, it's been fun for me. And one thing I'll tell you, I do this is kind of related to this, is I check in against the aim, and to hear you talking about the fact that I have a real sense that this is going to make a difference, which means I feel an infusion of truth into that quality of life statement of mine, that I'm sharing my gifts in a way that contribute to a more beautiful world. So that's really exciting, and thanks for the beauty that you'll continue to bring into the world in your various ways. Over and out. Catch you later.
Thank you.
Ciao.